Hey everyone, Riley here now again on the broadcast booth stage live from the Concealed Carry Expo. And we just had a fantastic interview with Rick Cicero. I know you guys got to shake his hands briefly. I mean, an inspiration of a man, an amazing story, and doing incredible work helping veterans learn how to shoot again and do amazing things. But now I'm surrounded and literally surrounded by two monsters of men as far as how I see it. I mean, I've watched you guys, I've watched a number of your videos especially, seen you a few places. This is our first time actually really kind of meet in person. Appreciate it. It's an honor for me. We got Deryck Poole over here. We got Barret Kendrick, both involved with ICE training, and Rob Pincus, whom we just had on the show yesterday. And so crazy, amazing things going on with ICE training. Awesome changes and great new partnerships for that part of the business with USCCA, changing over from kind of combat-focused shooting, intuitive defensive shooting. Cool stuff coming, and a great team behind a lot of that. So Barret, Deryck, thanks for doing this. Appreciate I'm appreciative of having you on the show.
Well, thanks for having us.
Absolutely,
yeah.
Thanks for having us.
So I'm going to start here, I guess. Barret, tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, and whatever else you want to share.
Absolutely. So as you kind of mentioned, I do work for ICE training for Rob Pincus, as well as also have my own firearms company that I started about 9, working into 10 years ago on that. Nice. My big specialty on that is really I'm going after that responsible individual that has that strong interest in home defense or concealed carry inside of that public environment. And I want to be able to take that student and really allow them to teach them to be able to develop a plan that make themselves safer, that make their family safer.
Yeah, that's great. I share a lot of the same passions. Deryck?
I've been doing this for a long time. Got out of the Marine Corps in 2000. Sort of got into it part-time and ended up running into Rob in 2010. Took a class with him. Ended up in instructor development and sort of worked my way through. Now I'm actually the outside instructor liaison for our CFS Inc., which is now our intuitive defensive shooting. So I work with, we have 40 to 50 instructors that are actively teaching the program around the United States, and it's my job to, make sure that they're up to date with our latest evolutions of stuff, like with the latest book with the USCCA.
Right.
That's a lot of our material that's evolved.
And this is this new iteration of the book. I mean, really, we had combat-focused shooting, right? Great book, too. And now we've got this. This was on the table yesterday as well, and it looks amazing. And kind of, had joked around a little bit with Rob yesterday about it because, he's like, well, the old book, I mean, a bunch of words on a page, a few pictures here and there. But this one just looks great. Communicates. I mean, I'm a very visual learner, so it helps me to be able to look at things and feels a little bit more tactile, and I know that'll be the case for a lot of readers out there, too. So love what you guys are doing in that regard. You've been presenting while here at the show about armed home defense.
Yes.
That's not really a topic that we've covered yet, specifically in this live event here. So I'd love to hear, kind of maybe a quick little summary, Cliff Notes version of what you were sharing in your seminar.
Absolutely. When people start to talk about home defense, a lot of people just go straight to the gun, right? Well, if somebody breaks into my home, well, the law says that I'm allowed to use deadly force to be able to protect myself inside of that home.
Just grab my gun and start spraying bullets.
And to be honest, that's what you get a lot. You'll see somebody share a course on home defense on the internet or some sort of picture that talks about it, and everybody's kind of, well, at least not everybody, but there's going to be plenty of people that are going to comment and post on that. Well, what kind of plan is it? It's you've got a gun, there's a bad guy in your home, you already have the answer. But in reality, the firearm is not a plan. It's just a really tiny part of the plan. So kind of what I was talking about.
One tool.
Actually, one tool inside of that plan. So I was kind of talking about this morning to the people inside of that presentation. Well, if I'm standing there, on the balcony overlooking the pool, and I'm 5 floors up on that balcony, and I have a goal that I want to go swim down in the beautiful pool because it's a beautiful day. Well, how do I get there, right? There's a lot of ways to be able to get to that end game. And that's the same thing with home defense is I have to establish what I'm trying to achieve. Right?
Into the pool. Okay, sorry.
I'm a little older now. But you have to establish what you're trying to achieve. So if I'm in my home and I'm there and my wife is there and my kids are there, even if I'm there by myself, what am I trying to achieve? I want survival, right? I want to be able to hug my children at the end of the day. So if my goal is safety, if my goal is I want to be able to survive and live to the next day, well then there's a lot of ways that I can get to that goal, but I need to make sure that I'm acting efficiently, but acting efficiently in the way that of what I'm trying to achieve, safety.
Right.
So there are a lot of ways that I can get down to the pool. The most efficient method probably would be right off the balcony to get down to the water, right?
Yeah.
But the risk is too high.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing with the firearms, whether it's public defense or inside of the house, is that I need to achieve that goal, but I want to keep that risk level to myself as low as possible.
And others.
And others.
Those that you
Absolutely.
want to continue to live for.
So we kind of talked about there's a lot of reasons you wouldn't want to have to use deadly force, right? Is that it's not, you've got to survive the fight, but you also have to deal with all the battles that come after that. So there's a huge ripple effect that could continue to go on for many years, right? So there's a major, a pile of reasons why you would not want to use deadly force, whether that's financially, having to deal potentially with bankruptcy, dealing with fighting a criminal battle, potential civil battle, having your family shun you away, having the society push you away, or making a decision and using deadly force when it wasn't absolutely necessary, then having to be able to deal with that for the rest of your life, the emotional side of it.
Yeah.
People have jumped to using deadly force. I talked about a case in Ohio here a couple of years ago where you had a father that went home from work to go get something, and he's downstairs in the basement of his home and hears somebody in his home. So he arms himself, grabs a firearm, and just sees a silhouette standing in the shadow of the doors there. So he immediately goes to deadly force and ends up killing his son that was skipping school, and his son was kind of sneaking home. And it's we have stories, it's more isolated, but we do have stories every single year.
Yeah, that's not the only time that's happened, obviously. I mean, there was another one not that long ago in Kansas or Nebraska. It feels like somewhere in the middle part of the country that a very similar thing. Daughter of the father comes home. He's not expecting her, and exactly jumps right. Thinks the plan. Oh, somebody in the house. Don't know who that somebody is. Grab gun. Use gun. I mean, like.
Right,
terrible
it's
plan.
just so much more of it.
Yeah,
And that's what we talked about inside the seminar. Whether you're talking about law enforcement response or trying to get my plan of action into place, sometimes it's safer to get outside of the home. Sometimes it's going to be better to simply get my family or get myself to a barricaded position, make it harder for that attacker to be able to hurt us.
Yeah.
And obviously a firearm's part of that. And it's firearm's going to be a part of that. Contacting 911 is all going to be a part of that. And it's just it's so much more than a gun.
Yep.
So it's just a tool, like you said.
Cool. Thoughts on armed home defense?
Barret, he covers it really well.
He said it all.
Tell me
a little bit about.
And a lot of let me say this: a lot of what he's talking about is like this is level 1, the book that we just came out with, that we helped Rob with. Book 2 is going to be hitting the home defense stuff, if I remember correctly. We'll have the evade, arm, barricade, that all the steps that should be in a good plan.
Yep. Totally. In fact, you pointed out to me, early on in the book, you die. Unfortunately,
I die early in the book.
Yeah. Poor tactics there. You did something wrong, man. I don't know what's up with that. Tell me maybe about. I'm curious, and you're welcome to obviously throw some thoughts in there as well. But let's just talk real quick about the use of a light. A light is also another important tool. More than half of deadly force encounters in this country occur in a home. Home invasions is a very, very common situation that a civilian might find themselves in where they need to use a gun. By and large, many of those are in low light situations. So, thoughts on flashlight, weapon mounted? Like, what's your thoughts on those?
Well, I'm right now. I have a flashlight in my pocket. It's broad daylight. I always walk around with a flashlight. Yep. You'd be surprised. Yep. My wife actually used to tease me when I first started carrying one until she lost her lipstick under the seat of the car in the middle of the day, and I handed her my flashlight, and she found her lipstick. Then all of a sudden, it was a great idea. Right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Great idea.
Like you use it more often than you realize.
Right. I don't carry a weapon-mounted light on my pistol. I carry, a pocket one. I don't like the gun being a flashlight. The gun is a gun, and a flashlight is a flashlight. Now, if you want to have a backup, or maybe it's a laser flashlight combination, so you have some sort of tertiary aiming device on the gun, that makes sense. But, the flashlight can be used to find the bad guy, identify a good guy within the house. But it's really important to know how to use it and not substitute a gun and a weapon-mounted light, interchangeably.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, I mean, that's it, right? Is that, with a flashlight, it's a tool for navigation. It's a tool for identification. It's a tool for getting answers. Inside of a home, we kind of understand a lot of our home being that you don't necessarily need it for navigation, but what you really do need it for is identification. Is that my family member? Is that somebody I don't want to shoot? Or is that somebody I'm actually may have to use deadly force against? And that's what the flashlight's for. But when we start to mount that to the firearm itself, we have to start employing tactics in regards to bouncing the light off to where we can avoid unnecessarily pointing our firearm at people we care about. The problem is that when I have seen a lot of students inside of scenarios where they're completely amped up, where I'm evaluating their ability to be able to apply that skill in a realistic setting, what we end up finding is that as soon as there is something to look at, the light may go from bouncing it off the ground, or with the weapon, bouncing it off the ground, immediately we start to see the light come back up because we want to put more illumination on what that target is. So we want to avoid that kind of stuff.
Totally.
So I like a handheld flashlight as a primary tool. My home defense setup, I'm going to have a handheld flashlight staged there with the home defense handgun. At home, I also do have a weapon-mounted light on those firearms, but that's for illuminating a target I've already decided I need to use deadly force against. So that's where you can, on a lanyard, you can drop the light, drive the gun out, and then you can use the light under that setting.
Yeah, and that's kind of where I'm at too. Like I have no problem with a weapon-mounted light. In fact, it has its purpose, but its purpose is it's used when the gun's being used, and we don't always want the gun to be used. I'm glad you mentioned staging. I'd be curious to hear your guys' thoughts on this as well, but I have just a quick access safe, and it's important. I make sure I tell every student this. It's not just a gun that's in that safe. It's gun and it's a flashlight at bare minimum.
Absolutely.
Maybe a spare mag and a knife. So I kind of have all those tools ready to go. Hit the buttons, unlock it, pop it open, gun, light. If I need to, I could search. Yeah. You can't, in my opinion, especially in a home situation, especially where there is that chance you might find yourself in a low-light situation and you might need to use your gun, you can't have the gun without that flashlight.
Yeah, it's important. Right? And like you said, a safe, you're responsible for that gun, right? I don't have kids. Barret does it. His 2 young boys. In my house, I still have a quick access safe for the times when I have nieces and nephews over.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, it's years ago before I had kids. I lived in an area where we never had visitors. In 8 years I lived in the house. Nobody just popped in and said, hey, I was in the area, right? Never happened because of where we lived. My wife was trusted. She was trained with guns. I was trained. I was trusted with guns. At that time, I didn't have to put it in a fast access safe. But fast forward, we're in Kentucky right now. My kids aren't. My kids are at home in Louisiana, potentially inside the home. So at 4 and 6, it doesn't matter the fact that I educate them, that I teach them, that we go out to the range and shoot, and they demonstrate good safety handling. At the end of the day, they're still 4 and 6. So I have to make sure that I'm doing something to prevent access responsibly to those who are inside of my home or who are around those firearms that I can't trust with the guns.
Yeah, absolutely. Cool. Stage things the right way. Make sure you have the right tools for the right situations. Apply it in the right way. All great lessons to take away from that.
Also a communication device, right? Like a cell phone.
Yes.
Even if you have an old cell phone, right, they will still dial 911 even if it doesn't have service. Keep that with your quick access safe.
You can keep it plugged in there to where it's always there. Because as we've gotten away from landlines inside the house where we used to have phones in different rooms, especially in the days they started selling the package of the cordless phones, right? They were all over the place.
4-pack,
Right. But fast forward now, usually each individual has their own phone, right? If they have a phone. My kids don't have a phone, but they have access to ours. So it's you can take, like Deryck said, you can take those old cell phones, leave them powered on and plugged in, and as long as they have a cellular signal, you can still call out and communicate with 911 there.
Absolutely. Good thoughts there, gentlemen. So here's a question. You hear something in, a bump in the night, and it's dark. You're in your bed. What do? Do you go looking for whatever that was? What do you do?
Well, see, it's different, right? Barret has kids. I don't. I live with it's me and my wife and my German Shepherd, which is canine trained. Most likely, I'm going to send the dog.
A German Shepherd could do a lot for you,
the dog. But my students, I tell them, there's no need to seek it out. As long as you know where your family is and be safe, it could just be something happening outside. It doesn't necessarily mean somebody's breaking in. But the last thing we want to do is be a one-man, going on a hunt by ourselves through our house trying to find a bad guy, right? We want to get the family together, barricade, execute the plan.
Yep. And that's a great point, by the way, because a few years ago we had kind of an interesting situation at my home where my neighbor's, adult child had a disgruntled ex-boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever, right? And that X decided to come and bash in the windows and taillights and headlights of that car. Well, that car, that driveway is kind of where our bedroom is. So it's 2 a.m. and you hear bang, 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 and it sounded like somebody was breaking into the house.
Yeah.
And that was the got the blood, going. I was like, holy fetch, safe, flashlight, and that's exactly what we did. My wife and I, we communicated, okay, let's get the kids, get you and the kids, right here, all the bedrooms together. All right, we're safe. I was looking out the windows. Okay, yep, all right, I saw what went on, and everything's cool. Place the call, 911. That all happened almost instantaneously. So that's good stuff. So no kids in the house. So German Shepherd, that's a great plan, by the way. Dogs serve a great purpose in these kind of situations. I'd be curious to hear your plans.
Absolutely. So I as mentioned, 4-year-old, 6-year-old, at one point they sleep in cages like other kids do at that age, right? Now they're in their own bed. So now they're almost at an unpredictable stage in their own life, right? We can talk about things to do. We talked about fire plant. We've got a designated area. How do we get outside of the windows, go to these areas to get away from the home? Well, part of that's also the same thing with self-defense, being that, I need to give my family permission to be able to evade and get away if they can get away, without me having to instruct them to be able to do so. So, if it's safer, sometime let's get them out the window. Other times, I personally, obviously, I have to go to the children's bedroom to be able to deal with it. Well, understand, alarm going off, potentially dogs barking, panic, stuff like that, right? I may at any point in time have my wife or a child or somebody else pop around a corner and surprise the crap out of me, right? So I've got to think about that when I have a gun in my hand. I don't want to move around a house and be potentially pointing a firearm at someone that I care about and then end up startled by that wrong individual. So as you move through the home, it needs to either be pointed more towards the ground in a stool position, or potentially already still sitting in a holster and kept in a holster, potentially on the body as well, as you move through, to where you don't unnecessarily point the firearm at them.
Totally.
But in that situation, young kids are either being given permission to stay inside of the room and wait there for one of the parents to be able to come there, or potentially also getting outside of the home, depending on what that danger actually is.
Excellent thoughts, gentlemen. Here'd be another thing. I recently saw a video on PDN, I believe that you were doing, and it was about, if I remember correctly, not appearing like a threat, like kind of a mass shooting, active shooter type situation. So can we touch on that just briefly as well?
So it's we're kind of big on that side of the program. If you're not engaged in shooting, then don't look like an individual that's actually engaged in shooting. Meaning don't have a firearm out there at extension, right?
So that's exactly what I was going to say. What does that look like?
Keeping it close, tucked back into you, or hand staged on the firearm inside the holster in a public environment if you're not actually engaged in using it. Be an active shooter. If we're moving to an area or trying to get away from that danger, and I'm not running through a building trying to find that active shooter, right? That's not my job. I'm not in a uniform. I don't have the badge. I can be easily confused as a bad guy if I'm running around with that firearm. So if I don't have that identified threat and I'm trying to move to safety or move my family to safety, I can simply have my hand gripping the gun still staged there. Or if I've got a coat, I could have it underneath the coat. Not looking like you're actually engaged and actually using that gun. But that even applies over to the home defense setting. Because remember, it's alarm calls. If you've got an alarm system, well, at some point in time, there's notification to law enforcement whether you intervene, right? If you're not answering the phone from the alarm company, they're going to dispatch law enforcement out there. Now, I think it's something like 75% of alarm calls are actually false alarms. So a lot of times they're not getting a lot of priority there. But if you've contacted 911, because you believe you have an intruder in your home, that's kind of getting priority now. So you've got law enforcement moving in. Well, they're coming to your house, and they're potentially looking for someone that could be armed. They're looking for that threat. They're looking for that intruder. They're looking for that bad guy. We don't want to be confused as that individual, right?
Absolutely.
And I don't know the area of where this was, but I was just recently reading an article, as in like yesterday, reading an article that included an alarm call. And I guess, I don't know if it was a silent alarm or what. However, there was an alarm going off at a home where a female and male were there living. I think they were actually exes, but they got back together at some point. So they're there living inside of the home, and the alarm goes off, so the police are responding. They've been notified by the alarm company, so the police are responding to that. Well, the people inside the home, they have an intruder in their house, so they're actually working through dealing with the intruder in the home. Well, the husband grabs a firearm, so he arms himself with the firearm. At some point, the wife's climbing out the second-story window, but in all these details, we don't really know exactly what happened. At least I don't really know exactly what happened, but the homeowner armed with the gun is going towards the front porch while police are responding to the house looking for an armed intruder or an intruder inside the home. Unfortunately, they ended up shooting and killing the homeowner. But as he's coming out with a gun, clearly that can be easily confused. So we've got to make sure that, it's not just about the perception. It's also about making sure our actions that we take are, based on that risk of things like that potentially happening.
Yeah, we had a really great discussion yesterday in one of our interviews too, where that kind of came up, as far as the need for, that's one piece of it, right? But on the other side, if you're the one that's looking for a threat, you need to also be trained and understand what that threat might look like as well. What kind of cues or signs you're looking for. It's got to be multiple things, not just you think you see a weapon and that immediately means it's a threat, but there's body language involved. There's other things, behavior that you got to be looking at, and that might cue you in as far as clue you in as to what that actually what's going on. So anything you'd like to add, Deryck?
Barret got it pretty well. I mean, that's why we teach the high compressed ready. We have a 2-person armed defense class that we use for, couples that are both armed or, 2 friends that spend a lot of time, work colleagues. And one of the positions we teach is that SOOL position, with the muzzle down. Right. So it's a safe position as well as a non-shooting position. It doesn't look like a very threatening
It really is a non-threatening position because somebody that's trying to kill you is not doing that.
Right. And, so we teach multiple target engagement. We talk about assessment when you're assessing your environment. And we talk about what are the things you should be looking for. People that need to be shot, people we don't want to get shot by. Well, when we get to that, people we don't want to get shot by, how do we make sure that we don't get shot? By not looking like a threat.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, it looks like we're out of time, gentlemen. We could talk probably all day long. But, folks, you need to go check out Barret and Deryck. You can find them. Obviously, you'll see a whole list of classes, too, on the ICE Training. ICEtraining.us is the site, right? And you've got Barrico. And what was your company again?
Echo 5 Training.
Echo 5 Training. So, you guys do some great stuff individually. You also do great, great things with ICE training as well. Check out Intuitive Defense, the Shooting Fundamentals book here. And there you go. Appreciate you guys' time, and we'll hope to connect with you again soon.
Awesome. Thank you for the time.